All right, I am speaking with the American composer John A. Carollo. By the way, I want to say Carollo because I live in California, so I'll have to catch myself, but it's Italian pronunciation. And we're talking about his CD put out, I guess, in 2017, yeah, by Navona Records, The Transfiguration of Giovanni Baudino. And I want to ask you about Giovanni Baudino. I have an idea or two. I hope I don't come up wrong, but I think I'm going down the right path. And I want to get everybody ready. I'm going to try and let you start speaking sooner rather than staring back at me. But I want everybody that's watching to be fascinating. Well, fascinating composer, amazing, interesting, complex, incredible portfolio of music that's on this CD, string orchestral music and orchestral music with the Moravian Philharmonic recording. And I've mentioned Navona Records, they put out incredible recordings by composers. But I want to get everybody kind of ready for this because when you've got a CD title that's called The Transfiguration of Giovanni Baudino, you know we got some deep thinking going on. And John spent many years, we're going to talk about it, as a social worker, uh, received his master's degree at Cal State San Diego in clinical psychology, social worker career in Hawaii. It's fascinating. You know, you say in your CD notes, here we go, ready? You say, quote, nothing in nature is static. And you also say that your music too is you try to emulate that idea that your music attempts to create a situation where no two musical moments are identical. It's very important and very interesting. Please, and that you try to emulate the idea of metamorphosis. Please help us wrap our minds around that. That whole schlemiel there.
Well, thank you for your interest in my music, Dan. I appreciate that immensely. Um, I've always been fascinated with change, and when I listen to composers of the past and contemporary composers, I often hear repeating elements, and a lot of them are identical. You know, when you study piano as a child and you're as an adolescent and you're going through Beethoven and Mozart music or whatever, and you realize that large chunks of their music get repeated over again. And I thought to myself, why do they do this? And I thought, well, maybe it's because they can create a lot of music that way. But I used to struggle with my music more by trying to by believing in the thought that since nature is not static but changes, like when a river is flowing, it's always moving and it's never identical. No, there's no two moments in time that are identical. Everything is unique, and so I've always had the notion that music should be uh, new, and it's the newness in the music that's so meaningful to me. So when I create a piece of music, that is in the back of my mind is always thinking, okay, is this new? I don't want to repeat myself, and it and does it repeat too much? And I want to always try to tweak it so that it's fresh.
It's like the art of writing, in my case, writing reviews. I mean, the cardinal rule is never repeat a word, period. That's all there is to it. You never repeat a word. So it's an agony.
Well, Shakespeare always had new words, never repeated the same word. It just he was very unique that way. So I try to do that with my music and try to um, have it work so that from beginning to end, there's this flow like a river that's going down a mountain stream. And it's got its curves and its bends, but it's always unique and different. Whenever you take a look at it from this angle or that angle, you've got a fresh perspective.
Well, this CD. Well, speaking of fresh and new, your career as a composer, you finally quit your day job as a social worker in 2006, right? Now that's yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm taken by the CD, which has I think, correct me now because I was running down some dates. I mean, it's all very reasonably recent. I think. What's the earliest work?
um,
Do you
Geez,
recall? Do you
I
recall?
earliest work is the symphony. Number two oh, the earliest. No, that's my
Yeah,
latest.
yeah, because the symphony is how I see
Oh,
2013.
most music on this CD was composed during the past 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, amazing, just amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
and as I told you before we started taping, I had a look at your portfolio of compositions, and it took me about 4 minutes to get to the bottom of that list. It's enormous. When
Well,
did
I
you start?
I have a gift, and probably born this way, of creating music quickly.
Hmm.
I don't agonize over it. I'm able to resolve an issue very quickly, so I can compose a movement of a symphony within a week and a half.
Wow.
Oh,
Oof. Uh,
uh,
did you hear that,
so,
everybody?
yeah. I think the symphony number two on this release wasn't. I don't think I spent more than 2 or 3 months on it.
By the way, I loved and we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I loved the title work, The Transfiguration of Giovanni Baudino. But I want to start at the beginning because there's another juicy quote. And I thought to myself as I listened to the string works, the string piece, which you'll give me the title. Oh, you'll give me, we'll do the rhetoric and mythos of belief. Now, fabulous. But let me just finish. Here's the quote. It is the simple idea that the most complex to elucidate is the simple. I got that a little turned around, but that simple things are the most complex to elucidate. And I found that very interesting in particularly the string, I guess, suite, the rhetoric and mythos of belief. You want
I'm glad you mentioned this because I studied music for 13 years with Robert Wehrman, who was the first person to get a PhD in music composition at UH Manoa, University of Hawaii, Manoa campus at the Department of Music. And I studied with him for 13 and a half years, and while I was working full time.
to?
And he always had me, he urged me to write complex music. And I resisted it, and yet I did it. But I still resisted it. And so in the last 4 or 5 years, and I even wrote a piece of music about this. I believe it's piano work, solo piano work. And it's called Back to Simplicity. I wanted to, in fact, be simple again. How the question is, how can I be simple again? And it's not so that people will enjoy the music one way or another. I think people can enjoy complex music as well as very, very simple music. But it turns out that simple music can be very difficult to compose well. And and my guess is, well, when I talk to performers, it's the simple music that gets them. It's the very slow adagios and the slow movements with the violin, and that can get. And it's the fast, rapid passages where little mistakes can be made, and not everyone hears it. Maybe the composer can hear it, and certainly the performer can hear it, but it's that slow stuff that is difficult to compose and to perform.
And that is, can I just be generic about the rhetoric and mythos? This is a five movement. Forgive me, it sounds so stupid and idiotic, but slow piece. A lot of
Yes.
it reminds me of Gorecki,
Hmm.
the Polish composer. Now, I don't mean the piece reminds me of Gorecki, but your what I was hearing reminded me of Gorecki. I remember very well going to rehearsals in Los Angeles, and he was rehearsing the Number Three Symphony, his famous Number Three Symphony with the USC Thornton Symphony Orchestra, and he was monstrous in a way, but it was because of the outrage that he felt about all of mankind, that people were not slowing down to
Yes.
really. Is that close to what I'm hearing in the rhetoric and mythos?
Yeah. Yes. One of the works, I think part three, Tranquillo,
Hmm.
and part part uh, four, Mysterioso, are the slower works. And uh, it well, what happened? Let me backtrack a little bit. Is my partner of 37 and a half years died, and this work is uh, dedicated to Bill. And I was in a lot of grief for 2.5 years, but it was during that grief I could channel the music channeled through me, and I was able to write this. I dedicated this to Bill, and I wanted to write something melodic and something that he could enjoy a lot. And this was composed in Hawaii. I'm living in Portland now. Hawaii has these vast open spaces, and uh, I think that has something to do with it. Um, the the slowing down. I wasn't living in a big city like I am now. Living out in the country for 3 years, I was able to take a deep breath, relax, and just enjoy the environment that's out there. And I was able to compose these works there.
I'm glad you told me the story because I knew it had to be narrative, obviously, and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
titles alone. And also, there is a melancholy. There is a it is the suite is rather
profound work.
yeah. So I'm glad I asked for a little explication there. Also, I found, but here's what what I'm getting at. The other pieces on this CD, we're not going to talk about all of them, but other pieces. And as I said earlier, I love your orchestration, man. But
Thank
they are quite boom, 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 slam, crash. Just exactly the opposite, at least in my view. Tell me if I'm wrong or right or
are.
what.
They're the yin and the yang.
Ah,
Um, um, I will often, now that you're talking about this, and I brought up the yin and the yang of music, I will often write a work, um, Dan, where it will start very peaceful and calm and simply, and with a lot of uh, melody, something that you can hum, and then all of a sudden it takes off into this. It's not mad. It's not madness, but it gets it's energy. The music flows and it gets this energy, and it gets so different from what you first experience, and often I will return to it. And I have there were some solo piano works that were recorded at Skywalker Sound in San Francisco. I flew over there 3 or 4 weeks ago. That was recorded, and one of them does exactly that. It's my 14th piano etude, where it has this beautiful melody, very nice slow, and then it gets sort of like this Beethoven energy in it, and then it gets back to this peaceful beginning. And I'm not I'm not saying that the music in the Transfiguration of Giovanni Baudino has that quality to it, but I think in some respects it does. Um, the One of my favorite pieces is the one that I think you like a lot. It's for piano and orchestra, which is the title of the
yeah,
of this. Um, I wanted to see if I could compose a concerto. It's not really a concerto though. So
yeah.
uh, the real title is the Transfiguration of Giovanni Baudino for piano and orchestra.
Ah,
But I
well,
give
it's an interesting color when the piano is present. It's a dynamic, very interesting color. Anyway, go ahead, please.
But the work itself is a story of my life. What the Transfiguration is all about is a transformation. Going from, I was born in an orphanage in Torino, Italy in 1954, and my adoptive mother was a domestic who took care of me there, breastfed me, nurtured me, and at but she was too poor to bring me home, and she was taking care of her mother, and there were some things that were going on in her life that I don't quite understand that I need to explore someday. And when I was 4.5, they looked at her and said, "You need to take this child home or give him up for adoption." So they gave me up for adoption, and I was adopted by a second generation Italian, and their last name was Carollo. My birth name was Giovanni Baudino.
I was,
So,
you know what? The note to myself was this question mark. Is this your alter ego?
so that's my alter ego. So I was born Giovanni Baudino, then took the name of John Carollo, and raised in northwestern Pennsylvania in a quaint little town, oil town called Oil City, Pennsylvania.
Sounds
16,
sounds charm sounds
yeah,
charm. It sounds charming and also horrifying, if you get my
yeah,
drift.
16 miles away from where the first oil well was drilled in the world. But it's actually the music is about the anguish of being torn from a culture that you're familiar with and being given to complete strangers. Of course, they loved me, and I loved them as time went on. But right from the get go, I didn't know who these people were or why I was even put on a. I wasn't on a plane actually. I came over by boat. Uh, and so it's that sort of it's that story of having your psychological being torn apart, and then you have to recompose it and grow up learning another language and being and getting and accustomed and being accustomed to a new lifestyle and a new culture.
Yeah, and also at age 4.5, if that's correct. Yes, you were this trauma.
Or
It was a trauma. It had to have been a
was
trauma.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't need I can't even say, Dan, if I'm quite over it. And I'm 60. I'll be 64 in November, and
I'm
I'm even.
glad. I'm glad you said that because we are witnessing terrible trauma to young kids in this country. It's
Well,
horrifying.
when during the current administration, when these immigrants were coming from Central America and wanted to get into the United States, and our current administration ripped these children away from them, I can't. I broke down in tears.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It has to have really stricken a chord, as it has with a lot of us anyway.
I knew that these children would without being without having their loving parents near them would never be okay.
Yeah. That's what
Some
psychologists have in fact said, and this administration ignores all of that. I think it's barbaric behavior. I never thought I'd see it in this country.
Yeah. So I take much of this music that you see on this CD. I take from real life events and channelize the emotions into music. And creating the music, the whole different story. Sometimes it comes easy, and sometimes it's a struggle.
Hmm. Let's focus a little bit on the Second Symphony. That's 2013, I think, if I
Sure.
remember correctly. Uh, Also, I believe programmatic, as you have just said. Um, Circle of Fire, is that a reference to the series of books, The Circle of Fire, by any chance, or what? Where'd you come up with that title for the symphony?
Well, I knew that there were books written about the Circle of Fire, and I decided to write a work um, that was very intense throughout, from almost from beginning to end. In fact, the second work, Line and Polyphony, um, it takes the very ending of the first movement and creates a whole nother work out of it. And there, in traditional symphonic form, you've got the a slow, fast, slow, or it could be slow, fast, slow, and inside the movement or separate movements altogether. And this is just almost pedal to the metal all the way through from beginning to end. And I don't know if to me it's not exhausting. I really enjoy it I hope it doesn't exhaust people, but
Well, it didn't exhaust me.
I
Uh,
can't say that the title came from a book or not. I wanted to give a flavor to how the music came across. And my third symphony, which I just completed recently, and the London Symphony Orchestra is going to record it in April of next year. I just found out last week.
nice.
Yes, that is totally different. It's a lyrical symphony. I wanted something opposite of the second.
Uh,
So it's all based on a song cycle that I wrote back about 10 years ago called the Blake Song Cycle. I took William Blake's poetry and set it to music and then turned it all into a symphony.
and you are this boy. We are segueing beautifully here in terms of what I wanted to talk to you about. You are a poet,
I
and
do write poetry. I just wrote a poem the last couple of days.
so my question is, when are we going to hear or see a work, or is it in that giant
Oh,
portfolio somewhere? A
glad
work?
you glad you mentioned this because Parma put out just now as we're speaking. Parma has come out with a release that had that where I that includes um, some of my poetry set to music. It's called Music for Choir, and I wrote nine works, and four of them are on that CD, and it's called the Ethereal Music from the Ethereal Side of Paradise.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Aha. Yeah. That has a bird of paradise or something on the
It has a
cover.
bird of paradise on the cover. It also what it is it contains music that has been on compilations over the years, plus two variations of the third movement of uh, the rhetoric and mythos of belief. The tranquillo part
Hmm.
wrote variations to it. So I can come up with a set of variations of a strings orchestra work, which I could never have predicted that
Hmm.
would happen 5 years ago, but here we are.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
how big a, how shall I put it? It's a big thing to say enough of. And I have another question too. I hope I don't forget, but this just occurs to me. You know, the idea. It's a big step to all of a sudden just chuck a whole lifetime career, if you will, whatever that was, 20 years or so. What was the drama or not? The angst that
Well,
led you?
there was some drama behind that. Um, Art reflects life. Is that how it goes, Dan?
Yeah.
Do I have that right? Well, I was working full time for the state of Hawaii as a clinical social worker, and I worked in administration for the Department of Health. And I was on a lunch break, and I'm taking my car up the road. You know where this is going. And an enthusiastic student from the university was coming down this street, eager to get home from his studies. He didn't see me. So he made a left hand turn right into me as I'm going up the hill. And I can remember very little about how
Hmm.
I got that car, my own car, and because it was totally damaged. And I thought, man, I could have been killed in this accident. Bill had just come back from a trip to Thailand. He was exhausted, but he came. I ended up going to the hospital, and I had an epiphany, Dan. I said to Bill, not to myself. I said to Bill, I said, "What do we need money for? You're a psychiatrist making good money. I've been making money all these years. You've never charged me rent. That's how I've been able to buy art and pay musicians to record my music over the years while I was working, and buy books. And I'm surrounded by music and art, uh, and uh, and I'm very grateful for that. But I said I don't need the money anymore. I said I just want to compose music, and he said quit your job, and that's what happened.
By the way, it helps to have.
Full time. Well, I work full time in music, but not in an 8 to 5 hourly wage job since age 50.
And
So I've been doing it.
tell us your schedule now. How that works? I think you mentioned it to me earlier.
How that works? Well, I'm most inspired to create music early in the mornings and late at night. During the days, it's hectic because I've got errands to do,
Sure.
chores to do, cooking and things like that, dinner, groceries, and then. But it's early in the mornings that are very peaceful and it's quiet. But on the other hand, I'm not totally honest with that either. I just compose all day long.
That's the beauty of your life now,
I
yeah.
really do. I really, when it comes down to it, I can say that I'm most inspired in the mornings and late at night. But I compose in what I call spurts. So I will work. In fact, just before you called me with the space interview, I started a work for children. It's called Children in Fantasyland, and and I was just doodling and coming up with beginning statements of what the second little piece was going to be for putting my head in a child's body. We've got to write something that's they can manage, not too
Hmm.
difficult, yet a little bit challenging, and those kinds of issues. Just before you called, then so these are the spurts. I'll do it for 5 or 10 minutes, walk away, get back to it for 10, 15 minutes, get up, walk away. What I'm doing is I'm internalizing what I had just done or what I just created. It's either going to be thumbs up or thumbs down. And if it's thumbs down, you know what happens. It goes into that trash can that we have on our computer.
And but you have just exactly described my technique, so I feel not quite so alone
Okay.
in terms of writing reviews because I I said I'd rather be conducting, but I'm a pretty damn good writer. Apparently, people like my writing, but it's that kind of process. I'll create a couple of sentences, get up, move away, then
Yeah.
come back, have a look. If it's okay, I move on.
And just as in writing, music comes from the editing process. You
Yeah, here,
edit,
here.
you edit, and in fact, you throw probably more away than you keep. But what you keep is a true gem. It's the real meat of what we need to hear or what we need to read.
Yeah, and it's what we, the creators, determine is the real meat. But it's an agony to get there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Listen, you told me, I'm not sure if we mentioned it earlier. We're going to run this down. It's getting going on 30 minutes, but I just want to. It's the standard, my standard finale question. But you made the mistake, I think, of telling me. I've already told folks about your enormous catalog, and you have told me either off camera or on that it's composing seems to be quite an easy process for you. Am I wrong or right or what? Did you say that correctly?
No, it's pretty easy for me. I say I struggle, but I don't think I really do. I
Hmm.
can create work very quickly. Um, I I know that I'll give you a little vignette. My composition teacher decided to go to the Grand Canyon to do a hike. So I had 3 months to do whatever I wanted to do. Because my standard practice was I'd write some music during the week. He would critique it and look at it and give me what he thought was uh, was well his view of it and what needed to be thrown out or what needed to be reshaped he would really analyze it inside and out. Well, I was free of that, so I decided that what I wanted to do was take my poems, get in front of my keyboard, and do a series of a narration of narrations with improvisation. Now, that's the name of the work: improvisation with narration work. And I came up with 90 pieces of music in 3 months, and it was all improvised. And all I did was read my music. But when it comes to, and I don't consider that serious music. It is and it's not. It's light music, you know. But with my serious music, when something, and I asked my composition teacher what makes a great piece of music, and he says it can't be replaced. You can't replace it. You can't replace Beethoven's Third Symphony with his Fourth. And so I go into a piece of music, and that's my mindset. But I can probably write. I know I can finish a piano work in 3 or 4 days, even sooner. And one last thing, I did a fundraiser for the public broadcasting system in Honolulu, um, and I offered for $1,000. They got a piece of Carollo music, and within 3 or 4 days, I had a solo guitar work. And when I called the producer, he almost fell to the floor because he said, "Well, you could not have written a piece of music that soon." And I did, and it just never stops. It just keeps flowing like a river.
So, hello, here, here. So it's a curse, and you finally fell, gave in to the this curse of being a composer. You are
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, that's what it is.
John A.
Yeah.
Carollo, John Carollo, what a pleasure it's been talking to you. I'm going to put this interview up at performingartsreview.net, the video interview. I'm going to write a review of the CD for you.
Forward to,
And pardon?
looking forward to the review.
Well, we'll see. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is, all of this for everybody watching, it's all going to be at performingartsreview.net, along with a lot of other wonderful, amazing. It's been a great experience for me, by the way. I've been actively reviewing CDs from all over the world for about a good solid year now or more for performing arts for my baby, performingartsreview.net, and what an amazing font of music by so many wonderful composers all over the world. So, and in your case, same thing. We are talking about the Transfiguration of Giovanni Baudino, aka John A. Carollo, and all of that that is going to go up in. I think I'm going to try and get the interview anyway up in a day or so, and then I'll throw in the review a little later. Anyway, thanks much. It's been a great pleasure chatting with you.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Good talking to you.